Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the dimly lit hospital ward, the mechanical rhythm of medical equipment and the occasional creak of the bed provided a monotonous soundscape. Evan fidgeted restlessly, his gaze constantly drawn to the clock, its hands inching forward, mocking him with their sluggish pace. With a sigh, he mumbled, "Just a little longer," as if willing time to accelerate. His unruly hair, the color of fallen autumn leaves, framed his determined face as he envisioned his imminent return to his cherished dog-grooming empire. The imagined cacophony of barks and the soothing sensation of soft fur were almost tangible in his mind's eye. A faint sound, like the whispered complaint of the floorboards, emanated from the neighboring bed. Curiosity piqued, Evan turned to find his roommate, her auburn locks framing emerald eyes, emerging slowly from her slumber. She blinked groggily, her gaze sweeping the room before landing on Evan. "Good morning," Evan offered with a friendly smile. "Or is it afternoon? I've lost all sense of time in here." The woman chuckled, her voice a pleasant alto. "I know the feeling. I'm Meredith, by the way." "Evan," he replied. "Nice to meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances." Meredith nodded in agreement. "Minor surgery, they said. Should be in and out in no time, they said. Yet here we are, stuck in this sterile purgatory." Evan laughed, appreciating her dry humor. "What are you in for, if you don't mind me asking?" "Gallbladder removal," Meredith answered with a grimace. "You?" "Knee arthroscopy," Evan said, gesturing to his bandaged leg. "Apparently, years of kneeling to groom dogs can take its toll." Meredith's eyebrows rose with interest. "You're a dog groomer? That must be fascinating work." Evan's face lit up at the mention of his profession. "It really is. Every dog has its own personality, and there's something so rewarding about helping them look and feel their best. What about you? What do you do?" A hint of pride crept into Meredith's voice as she answered. "I'm an astrophysicist. I study the formation and evolution of galaxies." Evan's jaw dropped slightly. "Wow, that's incredible. I can barely wrap my head around basic physics, let alone the mysteries of the universe." Meredith laughed, a warm, rich sound that filled the room. "It can be overwhelming at times, but there's nothing quite like the thrill of unraveling cosmic puzzles." Their conversation was interrupted by a nurse entering the room, her crisp white uniform a stark contrast to the drab walls. "Good news, you two," she announced cheerfully. "You're both cleared for discharge. I'll just need you to sign a few forms, and then you'll be free to go." Evan and Meredith exchanged relieved glances. As they signed the necessary paperwork, a strange tension seemed to build in the air. The fluorescent lights flickered ominously, and a low hum filled the room. "That's odd," the nurse murmured, glancing up at the ceiling with a frown. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light engulfed the room, accompanied by a deafening crack of electricity. Evan felt a jolt course through his body, every nerve ending firing at once. His vision went white, and for a moment, he felt as if he were floating outside of himself. When the light faded and his senses returned, Evan blinked in confusion. Something felt off. His perspective had changed, and there was an unfamiliar weight on his chest. He looked down and gasped in shock. Instead of his own body, he saw slender arms and hands with neatly manicured nails. His chest now sported a pair of small but definite breasts. He reached up to touch his face, feeling softer skin and longer hair.
"What in the world?"
he exclaimed, but the voice that came out wasn't his own. It was Meredith's rich alto. Across the room, he saw his own body sitting up in bed, a look of equal bewilderment on its face. "Oh my God!" Meredith's voice came from his lips.
"What just happened?"
The nurse stood frozen, her eyes darting between the two of them. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to get the doctor," she stammered, before hurrying out of the room. Evan and Meredith stared at each other in stunned silence. It was as if they were looking into a mirror, but one that showed an alternate reality. Evan's mind reeled as he tried to process the impossible situation.
"This can't be real,"
he said, still marveling at the sound of Meredith's voice coming from his mouth. "We've switched bodies? How is that even possible?" Meredith, in Evan's body, ran her hands over her new face, a look of fascination mixing with her shock. "I don't know, but it appears to be the case. This defies all known laws of physics." Evan couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. "Well, I guess you're the expert on defying physics now." Before Meredith could respond, a team of doctors and nurses burst into the room, led by a tall man in a white coat who introduced himself as Dr. Patel. What followed was a whirlwind of tests, examinations, and increasingly baffled medical professionals. Hours later, Evan and Meredith found themselves alone again, having been moved to a secure wing of the hospital for further observation. The doctors were at a loss to explain what had happened, chalking it up to a freak accident caused by the electrical surge.
"So,"
Evan said, breaking the tense silence that had fallen between them. "What do we do now?" Meredith sighed, running a hand through Evan's short hair. "I suppose we have no choice but to try and live each other's lives until we can figure out how to reverse this, whatever it is." Evan nodded slowly, the gravity of the situation sinking in.
"I guess you're right. But how am I supposed to be an astrophysicist? I don't know the first thing about galaxies or quantum mechanics."
A small smile played on Meredith's borrowed lips. "And how am I supposed to groom dogs? The closest I've come to animal care is feeding my neighbor's cat when she's out of town." Despite the absurdity of their predicament, Evan found himself chuckling.
"Well, I suppose we'll just have to do our best to muddle through, at least until we can find a way to switch back."
The next morning, after a fitful night's sleep, Evan found himself standing in front of Meredith's closet, staring at an array of elegant blouses, skirts, and dresses. He ran his hand along the soft fabrics, marveling at the variety of textures and colors.
"I never knew clothes could feel so nice,"
he murmured to himself, selecting a powder blue blouse and a knee-length navy skirt. As he dressed, he couldn't help but appreciate the way the fabric draped over his new curves. Evan's appreciation for Meredith's wardrobe was short-lived, however, as the reality of his situation came crashing back. Today, he would have to go to Meredith's job at the university and somehow convince everyone that he was a brilliant astrophysicist. The drive to the university was a blur of anxiety and last-minute cramming. Meredith had given him a crash course in her current research the night before, but Evan's head was still spinning with terms like dark matter distribution and galactic evolution models. As he walked into the physics department, Evan's heart raced. He nodded and smiled at passing colleagues, praying that no one would stop him for an in-depth conversation about the nature of the universe. His luck held until he reached Meredith's office. A young man with thick glasses and an excited expression was waiting outside the door.
"Dr. Thompson!"
he exclaimed. "I'm so glad I caught you. I had a breakthrough on the gravitational wave analysis last night, and I can't wait to show you the results."
Evan froze, his mind blank.
"Oh, that's wonderful," he stammered, frantically searching for something intelligent to say. "Why don't you, email me your findings? I have a very important meeting to prepare for."
The young man's face fell slightly, but he nodded.
"Of course, Dr. Thompson. I'll send it right away."
Breathing a sigh of relief, Evan ducked into Meredith's office and closed the door. He leaned against it, his heart pounding.
"I can't do this,"
he whispered to himself.
"I'm going to ruin Meredith's career."
But as he looked around the office, something strange began to happen. His eyes fell on the whiteboard covered in complex equations, and suddenly they didn't seem so foreign. It was as if a fog was lifting from his mind, revealing knowledge he didn't know he possessed. Without thinking, Evan picked up a marker and began to write, his hand moving of its own accord. Equations and diagrams flowed from the pen, building upon and improving the work already on the board. When he finally stepped back, Evan gasped. The whiteboard was now filled with a revolutionary new theory on dark matter distribution in early galaxy formation. He understood every symbol, every concept. It was as if Meredith's knowledge and expertise had been lying dormant in her brain, just waiting for him to access it. "Maybe I can do this after all," Evan mused, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through him. As the days passed, Evan found himself not just surviving in Meredith's world, but thriving. He delivered lectures that left students in awe, contributed groundbreaking ideas to ongoing research projects, and even began work on a paper that promised to revolutionize the field of astrophysics. But it wasn't just the intellectual pursuits that Evan came to enjoy. He found himself appreciating the little things about being Meredith, the way her hair caught the light, the satisfaction of perfectly applied lipstick, the confidence that came with striding across campus in a pair of heels. One evening, as Evan was preparing for a department dinner, he caught his reflection in the mirror. He was wearing a stunning emerald green dress that hugged Meredith's curves in all the right places. For a moment, he didn't see Meredith staring back at him. He saw himself, comfortable and confident in this new skin. The realization both thrilled and terrified him. Was he losing himself in this new identity? Or was he discovering a part of himself that had always been there, hidden beneath the surface? Meanwhile, Meredith was facing her own challenges in Evan's body. The first day at the dog grooming salon had been a disaster. She had accidentally nicked a poodle's ear while trimming mixed-up shampoos and gotten thoroughly soaked during a particularly enthusiastic golden retriever's bath time. But Meredith was nothing if not determined. She threw herself into learning the trade, studying dog breed standards and grooming techniques with the same intensity she once applied to astrophysics. To her surprise, she found a certain peace in the work. The rhythmic motion of brushing a dog's coat, the satisfaction of a perfectly executed haircut. It was so different from the abstract world of equations and theories she was used to, but no less rewarding. One afternoon, as Meredith was finishing up a particularly challenging groom on a Scottish terrier, she caught sight of her reflection in the salon mirror. Evan's face looked back at her, but the expression was all her own. Focused, content, with a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Well done, boss," one of the other groomers called out, admiring her handiwork. "That's the best Scotty cut I've seen you do yet." Meredith felt a surge of pride. She had done it. She had not only survived in Evan's world, but had excelled. The realization brought with it a mix of emotions, pride in her accomplishment, but also a twinge of sadness. She missed her old life, her research, the thrill of unraveling cosmic mysteries, but there was something to be said for the simple joy of making a dog look and feel its best. As weeks turned into months, both Evan and Meredith settled into their new lives. They kept in touch, meeting regularly to discuss their progress and any potential leads on reversing their situation. But as time passed, these meetings became less about finding a way back and more about sharing their experiences in each other's worlds. One crisp autumn evening, they met at a small cafe halfway between the university and the grooming salon. Evan, dressed in a stylish burgundy sweater dress and ankle boots, couldn't help but notice the way Meredith had styled his hair, a little longer now, with a fashionable swept-back look. "You're looking well," Evan commented as they sat down with their coffees. "That new hairstyle suits you." Meredith ran a hand through her hair, a habit she had picked up from Evan. "Thanks," she said with a smile. "I figured if I'm going to be in this body, I might as well make it look good. You're not looking too shabby yourself. That dress is gorgeous." Evan felt a flush of pleasure at the compliment. "I never knew how much fun fashion could be," he admitted. "There's something so satisfying about putting together the perfect outfit." They fell into an easy conversation, swapping stories about their days. Evan talked excitedly about a new theory he was developing, while Meredith regaled him with tales of a particularly challenging Afghan hound groom. As their laughter died down, a comfortable silence fell between them. Evan stirred his coffee thoughtfully before speaking. "Meredith," he began, his voice hesitant. Have you ever thought about what would happen if we can't switch back?" Meredith's expression grew serious. "I'd be lying if I said I hadn't," she admitted. "At first, the thought terrified me, but now—" She trailed off, searching for the right words. "Now it doesn't seem so bad," Evan finished for her. Meredith nodded slowly. "Don't get me wrong, I miss my old life. I miss the research, the discoveries. But there's something so fulfilling about what I'm doing now, making these dogs happy, seeing the joy on their owners' faces. It's a different kind of reward, but it's no less meaningful." Evan nodded in understanding. "I know exactly what you mean. I never thought I'd say this, but I love being an astrophysicist. The work we're doing, the mysteries we're unraveling, it's exhilarating. And—" He hesitated, then plunged on. "I love being Meredith. I love the way I feel in this body, the way I move through the world. It feels right, somehow." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their confessions hanging in the air between them. Finally, Meredith spoke. "So, where does this leave us? Do we keep looking for a way to switch back? Or do we accept this as our new reality?" Evan took a deep breath. I think we need to be honest with ourselves. We've both found happiness in these new lives. Maybe this bizarre accident was the universe's way of putting us where we were meant to be all along." Meredith nodded slowly. "You might be right. It's not the life I would have chosen for myself. But now that I'm living it, I can't imagine going back." As they left the cafe, Evan felt a sense of peace settle over him. The decision they had made was monumental, life-altering in every sense of the word. But it felt right. In the months that followed, both Evan and Meredith threw themselves into their new lives with renewed vigor. Evan's work in astrophysics continued to break new ground, earning him, or rather Meredith, accolades from the scientific community. He found himself nominated for prestigious awards and invited to speak at conferences around the world. Meanwhile, Meredith expanded Evan's dog grooming business, applying her analytical mind to the world of pet care. She introduced new, science-based grooming techniques and even started a line of organic, hypoallergenic pet products that quickly gained popularity among discerning pet owners. They kept in touch, meeting regularly to share their triumphs and challenges. Their friendship deepened, evolving into something unique, a bond forged by their shared secret and the extraordinary journey they had undertaken together. 1 year to the day after their fateful hospital stay, Evan and Meredith met again at the same cafe. As they sat across from each other, both couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed. Evan, now completely at ease in Meredith's body, wore a chic black pantsuit with a silk blouse. His hair was elegantly styled, and a pair of delicate gold earrings glinted in the soft cafe lighting. Meredith, for her part, had fully embraced Evan's more casual style, sporting a well-fitted button-down shirt and dark jeans that showed off her new, more muscular physique. "Can you believe it's been a year?" Evan asked, shaking his head in wonder. Meredith smiled, a hint of nostalgia in her eyes. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago." They spent the evening reminiscing about their old lives and marveling at the twists and turns that had brought them to this point. As the night wore on, their conversation turned to the future. "I've been thinking," Evan said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "Maybe it's time we told the truth to the people closest to us. Living with this secret, it's getting harder." Meredith nodded slowly. "I've been having similar thoughts. It's not going to be easy to explain, but I think you're right. We can't keep this to ourselves forever." They spent the next few weeks carefully planning how to break the news to their families and closest friends. It was a daunting task, but they drew strength from each other's support. The reactions ranged from disbelief to shock to, eventually, acceptance. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of tears and difficult conversations along the way. But in the end, the love and support of their loved ones helped Evan and Meredith fully embrace their new identities. As they navigated this new chapter of their lives, Evan and Meredith found themselves drawing even closer. They had shared an experience that no one else could possibly understand, and that bond was unbreakable. 2 years after their transformation, Evan stood at a podium, accepting a prestigious award for his work in astrophysics. As he looked out at the sea of faces, his eyes found Meredith's in the crowd. She beamed at him, her pride evident in the wide smile on Evan's borrowed face. In that moment, Evan felt a surge of gratitude for the strange twist of fate that had brought them to this point. He had found his true self in the most unexpected way, and he wouldn't change it for the world. As he concluded his acceptance speech, Evan's final words resonated through the hall. "In science, we often say that the universe is full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled, but sometimes the greatest mysteries and the most profound discoveries are the ones we find within ourselves." The audience erupted in applause, but for Evan, the only approval that mattered was the look of understanding and shared joy on Meredith's face. They had embarked on this journey together, and together they would continue to explore the new frontiers of their transformed lives. As Evan stepped down from the podium, award in hand, he felt a sense of completeness that he had never known before. He was Meredith Thompson now, in body and in spirit, and he was exactly who he was meant to be.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!